So the reason that I am no longer a firefighter is because I drove intoxicated. He goes, yep, you failed here. Fortunately, I'm gonna have to put you under arrest. Hey, Joe, come with me. We gotta fire you. What's up, everybody? And welcome back. Start all these videos like that. What's up, everybody? And welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about why I am no longer a firefighter. I have actually put a video on my Instagram explaining the topic, but we'll go in a little bit more depth today. Real quick, if you end up liking this video, hit the like and subscribe button down below. But real quick, I'll give you a quick synopsis of my experience and my timeline of actually becoming a firefighter. So back in 2017, it was actually 2016, the year of 2016 fall leading into the spring of 2017 is when I went to pre-service firefighter college. So I went to Humber College in Toronto, did that for 2 semesters, and after that I wasn't really sure as to how to get hired. So I spent about, I want to say 2016, 17, 18, 19, and I guess COVID really, because the 2020, nothing happened during that year. 5 years there, just kind of spinning my wheels, not really knowing what I was doing. Good for me for not quitting, but in that time I was taking course after course, volunteer after volunteer, just trying everything I could to land an interview. I landed one in 2021, I believe it was, with Toronto. I didn't end up passing that one because I wasn't prepared for that interview. But after that, as a result of not getting this job with Toronto, I actually said, you know what, I gotta flip the switch. I have to make this happen. I put too many eggs in this basket so far that I can't just turn back now. So at that point, at the end of 2021, I went to Creston, BC for a work experience program to get experience as a firefighter. So I was there for about 4 months, November, December, January, February. I got the job in February, went back for, I believe it was a little bit of March, just to kind of do my 2 weeks. And then that was it. So in 2022, April is when I started with Ottawa. I was there for about 1 year. And I have another video here. I'll link it here so you can see what that experience was like. But in addition to that, I was always trying to come home when I was in Ottawa. So eventually, after applying and applying, I got a job offer back in my home city of Vaughan. At the end of 2022, leading into 2023. And this is where the story really begins for this video today. So the reason that I am no longer a firefighter is because I drove intoxicated. Now I want to start this off by saying that driving intoxicated in any scenario, any which way, shape, or form is wrong. And I know to most people out there, they'll see them like, obviously, Joe, that's wrong, duh. But there are some people watching this who are a little bit younger, some people who are in college, some people who are in, you know, that younger phase of their life where they're in the position to make decisions, and they might not see it through this perspective that I'm about to talk about it now. So I want everybody to know, once again, drinking and driving is never, ever, ever okay in any scenario. So here's my story. So it was the day before or 2 days before drill school started with Vaughan. So it was the weekend of. So I think the drill school started, I'm pretty sure it was a Monday. So this was on the Saturday nights before. So 2 days before. What happened was I was actually going to a friend's house to just hang out and we're gonna watch a movie. So we were there. And normally I don't like to drink. And the reason I don't like to drink in general is because it's just something that I've kind of moved towards as I've gotten older, as I've gotten closer to God. And I've decided that, you know, drinking for me, it takes me closer to the enemy. And if not closer to the enemy, it takes me further away from God. And I realize that when I am sober, I am very logical. I get close to God, I talk to God, I keep God in all of my thoughts and my prayers and my day-to-day actions. When I drink, it's almost like I put the logic on the back burner and I let the emotional side come forward, as most people know when they drink. And when the emotional side comes forward, I see that more as the enemy creeping into our lives. And I don't like substances to creep in. So 99% of the time, I avoid any substances like alcohol. I don't do any drugs or anything like that. So that's taken care of already. But alcohol is really the one that I just sometimes dabble in, but very rarely. But that night particularly, we said, you know what, we're not going anywhere. Let's have a pizza, let's have some wine, and let's watch a movie. So at that point, I said, you know what, big deal, let's do it. No problem. Long story short, the night went on and we actually ended up going to sleep quite early because we said, you know what, I have drill school starting in about 2 days. So I want to get on a healthy sleep pattern of trying to fall asleep early, waking up early as well. So went to sleep. It was roughly about 10 p.m. I got a phone call at roughly, I want to say 1:50, 1:45, 2 a.m. kind of time. And it was my mom. And my mom was telling me that my sister, who actually suffers from bipolar, Asperger's, she wasn't doing good. And in these types of situations, which my family's been in before, there's been times where my sister's been extremely depressed, but also times that my sister has been manic. If anybody knows anything about bipolar, you'll know that there's two, it's a spectrum and they're very, very opposite. There's been times where my sister hasn't been able to get out of bed. And I've seen that the firefighters actually in the community have had to come, lift her out of bed, and bring her into an ambulance. I've also seen times where she's been manic, and the police have had to been called to her house because she simply couldn't calm down. She never got arrested or anything like that, but there has been, it was more of like a noise complaint from the neighbors. And I've had to go over to her house many times in that situation to help try to calm her down. And many times we just end up going to a doctor, to a hospital, and they are able to help with whatever medication they can provide. But when I got this call, my mom said, do you mind coming over? I know it's 2 a.m., but are you able to come help? And I said, you know what, like absolutely. I've done this multiple times before, going over to my sister's place to help. There's no chance I'm not gonna go. Now, remember the alcohol I talked about earlier that I had with my friends? Yeah, I didn't. I completely forgot about that because in my head, it was like, okay, you have a little bit of alcohol, it's just a little bit of wine, and you chalk it up to saying, oh, it's not that much, it's not that much. You fall asleep, and then we're all used to going to sleep and then waking up in the morning going, oh, a little bit of a hangover, oh, whatever. And then we just go throughout our day. And that's kind of what my brain was thinking of in that moment. You go to sleep, you wake up, and I didn't even remember that we had this wine from earlier. I mean, I guess subconsciously I did remember, like I knew I had this wine, but in my brain, I guess I chalked it up to just saying, you know what, there's no way at all that this wine could affect me. I felt, sober. I didn't even feel buzzed at the time. I remember that feeling. But this is just further proof to anybody watching that don't try to go in and judge your own level of intoxication. Do not do that because I promise you, you will be wrong. Because many people think that, oh, you know what, I had 1 or 2 beers. Oh, there's no way I'm at the 0.08. There's no way. And then if they were to blow, I'm sure that they would be higher than whatever they thought they would be. It's very dependent on someone's size, and especially if you're a type of person that you go to the gym, you're cutting, you're bulking, whatever, you're going up, you're going down, you're not really indulging in alcohol along the way, then it's very, very tough for you to just gauge all of a sudden where your alcohol level is and to know how that feels internally. But in that situation, I failed to realize that in that moment. So we got in the car and we ended up driving over to my sister's place, or at least trying to get there. And about halfway there, a cop actually pulled us over. So we see a cop pulling us over and we're kind of like, oh, what's going on? Why would a cop pull us over? I don't think we were speeding or anything like that. And when he came up to the car, he was super, super nice. And he said, hey guys, just letting you know, your taillight, I think it was on the right side of the car, is out. And that taillight has been out for probably about a month before that. And it's totally my fault for not changing that taillight. And he goes, yeah, so just letting you guys know, you're gonna have to get that changed ASAP. Thank you, officer, appreciate that. And since we were actually driving past a bar, and I think what he was doing there, he was checking to see for drunk drivers coming out of that bar. And I think he might have thought that we did come out of that bar, which we didn't. But he said, essentially, have you guys been drinking tonight? And I said, you know what, I didn't wanna lie. I don't like to lie at all. So I said, yeah, you know what, back at the house a few hours ago, like 4 hours ago, we did have a couple glasses of wine, but that was like 4 hours ago. And he goes, well, okay, since it's Saturday night, you admitted that you had something to drink. I want to do a field sobriety test. So I said, okay, sure, no problem. Like, I got nothing to hide. So I stepped out of the car, I was talking to him for a little bit. He was very kind. And then he asked me to blow inside of the machine. So I did the way he instructed. And then he said, essentially, he looked at me and said, well, it's like, I'm sorry, but you failed. And I go, really? He goes, yep, you failed here. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put you under arrest and you're gonna come down to the station. You're gonna have to blow again for us just to see what their machine actually says. Because in the field, apparently their tests, from what he was telling me, they don't actually say what your number was, like it's 0.0 whatever. I know on, like, I've seen some YouTube videos where in the States, it tells them exactly what their number is, but these ones didn't do that. You have to go down to the station to actually see what your number was. In their, I guess they're more, high-tech advanced machine, whatever it was. Again, I can't stress how nice he was, how kind he was. He wasn't a cop, and a lot of people think, oh, he's a cop, so he's gonna be a pig, or et cetera, et cetera. No, this guy was actually very kind. He was doing his job. Very, very kind individual. So we get down to the police station, and then I'm talking to the chief that's there. He's telling me everything that's going on, et cetera, et cetera. We went into another room, and he said, okay, cool. So this is officer whichever, and you are now gonna provide him with 2 breath samples. You're gonna do one now, then you're gonna wait about, I think it wasn't a clear 20 minutes. It was like something like, I think it was like 17 or 19 minutes. I'm not sure if you guys will do the research on how they do it, but it wasn't a 20-minute thing. I remember finding that really weird because like we were so close to saying the second blow would be at 20 minutes. Why not just wait till 20 minutes? I don't know. But regardless, it was before then. The first time I blew, I believe it came out as 0.09. If you guys know anything about this, the maximum that you're allowed to have in your system is 0.08. And we waited the 17 minutes, whatever it was, and then I blew again. And that number came out to 0.08. And he said what we would do is average the 2 of those, and that would be my final number. So if you average those numbers out, 0.09, 0.08, it comes out to 0.085. He told me right there, he goes, Joe, that's above the legal limit. You're just above it. So that's essentially what happened. What I failed to mention at the beginning of this was this all happened literally beside the building that I was going to the next day, or in the next 2 days on the Monday for drill school. So literally, as I was going into the cop station to blow, I look on one side, I see a cop station on my left, and I look on the right side, and what do I see? I see the place that I'm supposed to go in the next 2 days for drill school. And I'm like, wow, this is just like, this is crazy right now. You know, I don't know what it was, but I felt a certain sense of, I guess, calmness, because I said to myself, this is too coincidental for this just to be happening like this. I don't know what's happening. I was thinking to myself that there has to be a level of God intervening inside of this. When I realized that there was God inside of this situation, I thought to myself, okay, I can be calm. I don't have to be afraid. And if I were to lose my job over this, then honestly, so be it. And I'm not saying at all that God was the reason. God's like saying, oh, you're like, get in the car with alcohol inside your system, et cetera, et cetera. But what I am saying is that if God wants something in your life, God will keep it there. And if God wants to remove something from your life, then God will take things away from you. And sometimes there are things in life that are not meant for you to have and not meant for you to hold. And there's specific things that you think you're going to be with forever, but they were meant to be there for a season of your life. And then later on, when you look back on it, you see as to why. I remember the next day, I was completely distraught because it was the Sunday, and I'm like, oh my God, like I have to start drill school tomorrow. What's gonna happen? And then I remember on the Monday, I went a little bit early, and I was waiting across the street where there was a Tim Hortons. I was just kind of chilling in there because I was, you know, I didn't want to be late for drill school, and I was stressing out. My brain was going all over the place. And I remember I have a picture, and I'll show it here, that it was literally me looking at the camera, and I was just not even in my body at that point. I was thinking like, wow, like, how am I going to get through this day? How am I going to get through these next 3 months of drill school? Like, how am I going to get fired at any moment? And I remember looking at the camera and just thinking that I'm not walking through this day myself. God is going to have to get me through this. And there's that thing where it says, you know, when you walk through life, you look back behind you and you only see, you know, 2 footsteps, but you thought you were walking with God. Yeah, because God was carrying you in that moment. And in this moment where I took this picture here, I felt God carrying me through that moment 110%. 110%, like I've never felt before. And trust me, God has carried me through many moments in my life before, many, and he probably will in the future as well. But I definitely felt it in this moment. Drill school went on, and it was very, very, I guess, anxiety ridden for the beginning of that, you know, the first month or so, because I thought at any given moment, someone would open the door to our classroom where we were learning and say, Joe, come with me, we got to fire you. And I literally, it was, you know, a really tough time going through that. but it was what it was. Now, how did my workplace find out? About a month into drill school, they asked us to take our license and actually put our license into their computer system, and they'd have it on file. So after they did this, on the Monday after that, one of the chiefs pulled me into their office and said, hey, so Joe, we ran everybody's license and we do it every 3 months. We didn't tell you guys that, but we checked to see where the standing of all your licenses are, and it turns out that yours is suspended. So we're gonna have to have a meeting tomorrow to talk about this. In that moment, I knew right then. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to them. So they're gonna find out exactly what happened. I'm not gonna try to pretend it was this or that or whatever. So I'm gonna tell them straight up, and they're probably not gonna like the answer as to what it is. Next day we had a meeting. I was straight up honest. I told them exactly what happened, the story that I'm telling you guys right now. And they were very kind about it, and they said, okay, so we're gonna sit with this for a minute. We're gonna have more meetings in the future, but just thank you for being honest. Thank you for telling us. So I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember maybe about a couple weeks later, I had another meeting with the chief. Essentially that, let's see how this plays out with your lawyer. Let's see how this plays out in court. And if you could reduce the charge from, any sort of criminal charge to bring it down to, reckless driving or whatnot. And at the end of the day, I actually did end up doing that because the numbers were low, no damage towards property, anyone in the community or anybody inside the car, there was no damage anywhere. They said, of course, we're gonna bring this down and reduce this, but you're going to have 8 demerit points. So that's what happened. I went to court, they reduced it, 8 demerit points on the license. So when I went back and I told the chief said to me, he said, Joe, okay, only thing is here, you have 8 demerit points on your license now, and we can't keep you on board if you have 8 demerit points. Essentially, when I heard this, I was at the point where I said, you know what? He's such a nice guy. He's being so kind about this. He's right in the situation. I did the wrong thing. He did nothing wrong, the chief. So I accepted what he said, and instead of getting, I know a lot of people would get all pissed off and mad. Oh, no, how can you fire me? No, I didn't go down that path at all. I sat there and I said to the chief, I said, Chief, thank you so much for even allowing me to be here to begin with. I'm sorry that this happened. I'm sorry that if this caused any extra work for you guys on your end, I apologize deeply. And he was very, very kind about that. He thanked me when I said that, and that was the end of it. When I did get fired, this was actually after drill school was done. I completed drill school, graduated, and I was actually on the floors already. So it didn't happen right when drill school started. It happened probably about 4 months after, right? So it was quite a long time that the whole process went on for. Now, looking back on the situation, it makes a whole lot more sense now than what it did in the moment. Now, when you're in the moment of whatever situation you're going through, you tend not to see things clearly. You tend to see things from the enemy's perspective, and you tend to not lean on God in times when you should. And I tried my best in those moments, but when the devil's coming at you, and he's coming at you pretty hard, and he's trying to get you to do what he does best, try to discourage you, try to make sure that you don't get to your eventual goal, try to tell you that you ain't shit. When in reality, what you should be allowing is for this right here, the scripture, to be coming through, and you should be leaning on this in that time. And that's one thing that I learned in this situation heavily, to lean on God in these moments, to rely on God in these moments. And even if you don't, I strongly believe that God will be there for you to help carry you, to help lift you when he needs to, when you need it. But leaning on God and turning to him will help you mentally get through that situation a lot better. The silver lining in this situation is this. When I look back on the situation now, I'm able to see very, very clearly why God took time with me for me to get hired in the fire service. I wasn't one of those guys that got hired, finished pre-service, put my first application in, and then I get hired, boom. I know some guys that are like that. I know a couple guys that I went to pre-service with, and they got hired relatively a year or maybe a year and a half after pre-service, and I was not one of those guys. I said, God, why do I got to go take all these extra courses? Why do I got to do this volunteer? Why do I got to do this work experience? Why do I got to move away to BC, then to Ottawa after 5 years? Why does COVID have to hit at this time? I'm thinking, why me, all of this stuff. And then in those moments, I didn't want to do all of that extra work to get to a spot that I saw other people getting to very easily. And yes, it was discouraging for a lot of those moments during that time. But looking back now, I see very clearly why God took me there. God took me there because he wanted me to be able to teach people like you how to get there a lot quicker, a lot easier, and how to not quit on your dream of becoming a firefighter. I don't know how it happened, but somehow, some way, I didn't give up on that path. And I went down pretty much every single tough path I had to become a firefighter. And I think the reason for that is, so when you guys come to me now on IG, on YouTube, and you say, hey Joe, I have this problem. I don't know how to get over this problem. I don't know how to get over this or that. And I could look at someone's resume right now and tell you, oh, so your issue is this, 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 and this within 30 seconds. And I could help somebody get through any one of those situations. I was the guy that was stuck at each one of those checkpoints for probably 3 to 6 months. And I didn't know how to get past it. I had to rely on other people to try to help me. Some people giving me good advice, some people giving me bad advice, not really knowing what the correct advice was. So I would waste 3 to 6 months trying to figure out the answers. Now, the beautiful part is I'm able to come to you guys when you guys have any problem, any issue, and I could tell you, okay, so you got to do this, you got to do that, change this, change this. And what does that do? It causes you guys to not have to go down the same path that I did of wasting 3 to 6 months to figure out a simple answer. You have to get the resume done. You have to get this work experience. Stop pouring all your time into extra courses, extra course. Go towards a work experience. Oh, you don't know how to do that? Here's, take this path or take this path. But Joe, those are tough. Yeah, I know, but this one will get you there quicker. That one will get you there slower. Do this one. And those little decisions, that can save you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. But in addition to that, what it saves people the most is people get into those 6-month periods of not knowing what to do. And what do? Most of them just quit. Plain and simple. And they go back to working at their dad's company. They go back to working some part-time job, and they just quit on their dreams. And they just never think about firefighting again because it's too hard for them to reminisce and to think about. At the end of the day, when I look back and I see why God took me those long ways, it's because I'm now able to share that wisdom, to share that knowledge with other people who are aspiring to reach their dream of becoming a firefighter. I'm able to help people. I'm able to give to people. I'm able to effectively change somebody's life in that regard and taking them out of that painful period of their life to make sure they never quit and to make sure that they achieve their dreams. I think Steve Jobs said it. He said, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You always have to connect them looking back. And, he took a typography class within college and he's like, why am I taking this class? What am I doing? This is never going to be useful in my future. Later on, when he went on to create the first Apple computer, they had the first typography on that computer that was actually above every other computer that was out there, any Microsoft computer, and it had a warm feeling to the typography. It gave it life, personality, and that till this day, people say is the problem with Microsoft. There's no personality within it, but Apple has that personal side. It says hello to you. It's a person, and it reaches out. So Jobs couldn't see at the time why he had to take that class. But looking back on it, Steve Jobs can see very clearly why he needed to be there. I can see very clearly in this moment why God put me in this situation to strive hard, to work hard, to never quit, to inspire other people in the future, like you guys watching this video, to do the same. Some people will look at it and they'll find inspiration from that. And some people will look at it and find negativity within that and say, the haters will pop out and say, Joe, you shouldn't be creating these videos. Hey, didn't you get fired? Hey, you're not even a firefighter anymore, bro. What are you doing? Well, to that, I say this. Every time I see any one of those DMs or any one of those messages and comments on my page, I always think to myself, these people are trying to remind me of that one night where I made a mistake that I've moved on from. And I find it very interesting that the devil, he knows you by your name, but he only calls you by your sin. And God, he knows you by all of your sins, but he only calls you by your name. So when all that negativity comes my way, I just acknowledge it for what it is, and I know who's bringing it to me. And in those moments, from what I've learned in the past, is to lean heavily on the Bible and to lean heavily on God's teachings. For I know that no weapon formed against me shall ever prosper, ever. And I want to live my life not looking through my eyes anymore, but looking through the heart of Jesus and the Bible and Scripture. I know I am not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But in addition to that, I am not my mistakes. And anybody watching this who's made a mistake, anybody watching this who's trying to come back from a mistake, understand that you're not perfect, but you're definitely not your mistakes. So if you enjoyed watching this video, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Thank you very much for everybody who watched this. And I have to say to you, God bless and have a fantastic, fantastic day. I love all of you guys. See you next time. Woo!